What is going on, everybody? Can you see me? Can you hear me? How is the volume? We've had some nice debates on if we're too quiet or not. So let me know how you think on the volume. This time, we're doing the puppy, by the way. So get ready to join some of the puppies, but I'm not quite going to join yet. Going to let people kind of come into here. Pull up Underdog on their end. And I'm going to tweet this out as well. Okay. Kind of quiet. All right, we can jack it up a little bit. If I do any higher than that, though, I'm probably going to have to do it on a different screen. And I'll probably have to do that not when you guys are here. So I'll try and just talk a little bit better. But okay, that's better. Nice. We'll roll with that for now. Firing questions. I see one in there. We'll get to in a second. Fire any questions you guys got. Again, we're going to do the puppy. So $5 entry fee. Same, I think, advancement structure. Yeah. 2 out of 12, 1 out of 10, 1 out of 10. So a difficult advancement structure, but it's already 68% full. My goodness. There's going to be like 10 puppies over the season, but that's crazy. It's already 68% full. All right. In about 10 seconds, I'm going to give you guys the cue to draft into that. We're going to do the 20 seconds per pick one. I just like how that moves through a little bit faster. We can have time to kind of talk about some other things. So join it now. Join it now. In 10 seconds, I will join it off the delay. And again, fire in questions you guys got. I'll answer them. Okay. I will enter on my end. And we'll see if any of you guys can get in here with me. It looks like I was like the last person to join in, so I don't know how many of you guys are also going to be in there. I did an update today. It was very minor. Basically every day, honestly, I do like a rankings update, but kind of updated the top 10. This is how I like it right now. Chase, Saquon, Bijan, then the 2 wide receivers, Jefferson and Lamb. Then we throw Gibbs in there. And then I think it's like a 3-person tier right now. I don't 100% know how to rank it yet. But right now I have Neighbors, Genty, and Puka. And then I think you kind of get into another 3-person tier of Nico, Amon-Ra, and Brian Thomas Jr. This is for Underdog in redraft leagues. I would probably move McCaffrey up. I don't know exactly where, but I would move him up into late first round. Derrick Henry would probably bump up a little bit more, but of course, because this is a 3 wide receiver format, if you're in a 2 wide receiver format, it's going to favor the running back a little bit more, obviously, because there's more spots for running back. We got a super chat. Nice. So we will do it. Oh, and some people, we got number 2 pick, number 7 pick, and number 12 pick. Nice. So we're scattered amongst the draft. That's fun to do. I'll enter the super chat in a second. No real things to go over here. Draft based off rankings for the first round, unless you're doing a bunch of different drafts. Like if you're going to enter, like you're going to max a puppy, right? 150 drafts. If you just naturally end up with like the 3 pick a ton and you're just hammering like Bijan or something, sometimes you want to like look at your player pool, look at, oh, I have 30% Bijan and only 10% Jefferson. And sometimes you want to be like, okay, let's take Jefferson sometimes. Like kind of mix and match a little bit to get relatively even. You don't want to take any massive stands on first round players because they're all probably going to be really good. And there's easily a chance that, second week you advance in the finals. Jefferson has 150 receiving yards and 4 touchdowns, and you can't win without him. Like all these players can post, can't win without him weeks. And so you don't really want to fade anyone too much, especially with everything so close in this point in the draft. Okay. I'll pull this up, make sure, you guys be able to see all that. The super chat gets picked a draft slot in a 12-man standard non-PPR without putting a super chat in there, just in a regular message. Do you mean standard as in 0 points per reception or half PPR here? I'm going to answer it as standard, 0 points per reception. I think that's what it is. Should you pick at the number 2 spot? So in a standard scoring league, I'll just straight up pull up my standard rankings right now. Running backs are king. Like you just need all the running backs in the world. You want to invest heavily in running back early on. Their value is going to be really high. So if you guys all want to see, this is right now what I have as the top end, 0. Okay, so this is the standard scoring rankings right now, at least the top end of it. As you can see, a million running backs. Hold on. I, for myself, want to just pull up. Okay, we have a little bit of time. But I want that screen to be over here. So I can just pull it up once we actually get there, and we can talk about this for a little bit. You want the running backs. Obviously, at 2, you're going to lock in one of Bijan or Saquon. And I do think there's a pretty good gap. I mean, look at the projection, 178, 162, 144. So getting that second pick there would be really nice. Hold on. We're going to make our pick, and then we'll kind of... I promise you I will get to this question. We will kind of go through what I'm thinking there, but we also have to pay attention to the draft here first. So we have Bijan. We could go double running back with JT. Don't hate that. Or we go T. And I don't think there's much. It's nice that we're in this spot at 22. McBride would be fine there. I would not want to go to any of these receivers or any of those running backs. I think it makes sense to go like this. Gain some leverage here. Maybe we only draft. We could technically try out a build where we only draft 3 total running backs, but we could also do 4 running backs in the build. Allow ourselves to go with 3, potentially 4, probably 3 tight ends later on. Draft a million wide receivers. A lot of flexibility later on because we have this value right here. But yeah, I think it's a unique start just because both them have obviously league-winning potential, but like when we're advancing in Best Ball Mania and this for the puppy, you need that ceiling. It's nice having the ceiling for 2 different running backs here. I don't know. I kind of want to try it. I know I alluded to it a second ago. I'm not in love, like had a different receiver fall in here. I kind of want to test out because he has a different, I want to test it. We do have the double week 5 bye. So theoretically, later on in the draft, like if we want to use our round like 17, 18 pick on a running back that's not week 5 and grab that one. But at this point, I want to test out a build where we have basically 3 lead running backs, and then we're not going to touch running back forever unless one's a super good value at some point. Hammer wide receiver for the rest of it. We might draft 9, potentially 10 wide receivers. I want to test out, see what this build will look like. But anyways, back to the standard scoring. I think 2 makes sense. I think it makes a lot of sense. You're not going to end up on your second pick with like a super high-end running back, but you're going to have a really good wide receiver. So if you take Bijan at this spot, look at the wide receivers that are potentially going to go in this late second round. You know, Nico, Brian Thomas, Neighbors, Amon-Ra, like that's pretty awesome. And if you're not getting one of them, it's because there's another really good running back available too. If you weren't going to go with 2, I would probably... I don't know that I want to go 3 because you're going to get stuck with Gibbs. Genty at 4 doesn't feel like amazing value. 6, 7. Yeah, if you're not going to do that, it would probably be to try and get one of JT or McCaffrey by taking like a 7-8 pick and then basically being like, I'm going to take one of those 2, and then I'm also going to be able to grab like a sweet wide receiver. But I think you can do that anyways. No, I think you go early. Yeah. If you could draft the spots, take 1, take 2. If you can't do one of those, it'd be a top 3 or top 4. Because again, when you get into the late second round, you're either going to have another sick running back or one of the top end wide receivers, like one of the top like 8 wide receivers. It's a pretty lucky spot to be in. So I would take 2. I think it makes a lot of sense to do that spot. And we have seen historically, I do want to do another study into this. We've seen historically your success over time, early on picks are more successful. So people who draft with like the 1, 2, 3, 4 pick do find more success over time than as you move on into like the later portions of the draft. I like strategy-wise sometimes being in the middle, just being able to like kind of play the ADP game a little bit. But we have seen like top 5 picks are just more valuable, at least a higher championship rate. Hopefully that answers your question enough. But yeah, I think like a number 1 would also be fine, just taking Saquon. but Saquon and Bijan are pretty easily the top 2 running backs in that format. So being able to lock one of them up makes a ton of sense. Okay, 410. And after I do this one and the next one, I'll pull up the draft board and we can look at the draft board for the rest of this. I promise. Again, we need to be hammering wide receiver. So we should just take my top wide receiver on the board. There's no real correlation we're looking at there. DK Metcalf is a stud. He got paid $1 billion to go play for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're going to utilize him heavily. We need receiver. It just makes too much sense to do that. I'd love to get one of Hunter or Pickens at this next pick. I feel like I'll be able to. I'll be a little bit sad. Okay, so 3 are left. Theoretically, if we wanted to go with Hampton as our other running back, we could. I don't think the value is there. I think the hope was that they did not do that and take Pickens, but I think we go with Hunter. We're getting good ADP value as well. Top player there. This was a good spot for Marion Hampton had we not gone with the running backs, but the value in this draft, obviously, for us now is there. So, pull this up. Okay. Again, bit of a unique start for us. Bijan, JT, Jacobs, and then Metcalf and Hunter. I'm curious, actually, what the playoff, let you guys know. Playoff schedules for, let's pull up Atlanta. We've got at Tampa Bay week 15, at Arizona, and then versus the Rams. Okay. And then Indy is going to be at Seattle versus San Fran, and then versus Jacksonville. So we do have JT and Travis Hunter as one there. Jacobs looks like at Denver, at Chicago versus Baltimore. I probably need to try and memorize a lot of those. I will say, it's important because like when you make it to the end, you're going to want that upside, but don't think about it too much in terms of stacking in these tournaments, just because like I just naturally got one drafting JT and Travis Hunter, and that alone could be enough to like kind of set a huge part of my lineup. But it's really good if you can kind of memorize those weeks 15, 16, 17, who's kind of going there, because it can just kind of help you make like 50-50 choices, right? Had it been Pickens versus Hunter, and Hunter really is a nice like week 15, 16, or 17 stack with one of my top players, you just still want to lean in that direction because so much of the equity in these tournaments is in the end. Of course, you still have to make it there, right? And drafting good players is going to how you're going to get there. But if you make it to the end, the value of your lineup is so much higher. And realistically, let's say you advance. You like basically just get your money back. Like advancing doesn't actually help you all that much. You got to keep advancing anything, and you got to make a team into the final. If you're going to max the tournament, you got to try and get one team into the final. And if you're able to do that, and you've got a 6 stack, whether it's stacking up a team or going like a back and forth in a stack, like there's just so much equity in that it just makes all the sense in the world to at least lean in that direction. Would I draft Travis Hunter like 5 spots ahead of ADP just because I have JT? Absolutely not. But in a 50-50, if it's really close, even like a 60-40, sometimes you might want to just lean in that direction. Okay. We're going to be up again in a second. We've drafted a few wide receivers here. I would take Chris Godwin to see if he's available. He is available. Nice. If not, that would have actually been a tough situation for us. And I'm curious what we're going to do at our next pick. But I think Godwin just makes a ton of sense. We'll see how he's fully recovered or when he's fully recovered. But you got to think also a lot of value in these tournaments is the end of the season. You're imagining he's going to get better and better as the season kind of goes on, healthier and healthier. It's a great offense. Chris Godwin, I think wasn't he like second in points per game last season? I like this build. I like this build so far. I feel like we would go with Laporta at this spot because if we don't go there, we are in kind of like a new tier of wide receiver that I'm not as in love with. I like Shakir. I like Myers. So I'd be fine with them. But I think Laporta, again, top by ADP, top in the rank. You love when that happens. I think he makes sense because, if I can click the button, let me pull up the draft board for you. This is why I think it makes sense to kind of go with him. When we're thinking about our team in, again, those final weeks, we want to think, how can we create a lineup that scores like 180 points, 190 points, like something that can just push us to a massive win, right? You need that explosive weeks. We've created an ability here where, yes, we can draft like 3 or 4 tight ends, and that can be our value in that, like, we have so many of them. Tight ends very touchdown dependent. They're very random at touchdowns. So you can have a couple lower end tight ends. One of them hits on a touchdown. That helps you. But when you can also attach yourself to a really strong team and get touchdown equity in those teams, I don't have Jahmyr Gibbs. I don't have Amon-Ra St. Brown. I don't have Jameson Williams. Those are 3 very, very good players that, unless we see massive injuries or something, are going to be in the final. And let's be honest, Detroit's going to score points every single week. Okay, I don't have David Montgomery. There's so many players in Detroit I don't have. It's nice to say, well, okay, how about this? I do have a player in Detroit who's reliant on touchdowns for his value and is a one-off position. There's a world where he has 6 for 80 and 2 touchdowns, is the number 1 scoring tight end that week by 7-8 points. That's a huge value for in your lineup. But then also, if he's scoring multiple touchdowns, it's leverage off of other players who are probably going to be in the final at a very high rate. So a good pick in that sense, because also, like, again, we saw a drop off at wide receiver. We would have been fine taking one of them, but that allows us also more flexibility later on, not only in the leverage there, but then in, hey, we don't have to draft 4 tight ends now. So this value that this running back is creating kind of catapults us into this value, saying we fully have the ability right now to draft 10 wide receivers, and that just opens up more opportunity for us in that we don't have to, have Metcalf, Hunter, Godwin. They don't have to hit in a way that maybe they would have had to before if we had to spend a lot more picks at other positions later on. Just about creating outs for yourself, creating leverage off other players, while also thinking about your lineup and the things that you do early on, how can they impact you later on? Anywho, we're going to be up at 94. That's going to be in 7 picks. And I promise I'm going to get to all questions that are in here. So even if you don't see me answering anything, just keep any question you have, just throw it up there. We're going to get to all of them at the end of this. Okay. 4 picks. We will need a quarterback at some point. We have Godwin, so we can go with Baker. But, okay, there goes Baker. Lawrence will be later on. We don't have another. We're not going to go quarterback with this pick. Running back, we would only do it if there's a huge value. There won't be huge value. We're not going to go there. Wide receiver, I would say Emeka wouldn't. Emeka would make sense if we had gotten the stack, and I think he still makes a little bit of sense, but everyone I'm clicking right now are players I definitely like and would definitely be fine taking at this spot. I don't think the value is really at tight end there. So I think it's wide receiver. I think Burden makes the most sense because, again, we don't have any Chicago players. Chicago's going to be a good offense. This is leverage off of some of those guys. We didn't take DJ Moore early. We didn't end up going with Swift. We don't have, at least right now, Loveland. He's probably still on the board, right? Yeah, Loveland's still there. Yeah, there goes Burden. He was a good pick at that spot. I think Emeka can make sense here, even though we're not going to have Baker Mayfield, just being like, use them as a duo. So just say, you know what? I have 1 million picks I can make at wide receiver. We're going to have plenty of opportunities to draft wide receivers. I'm just going to say Godwin and Emeka are a block. And I do this often. I don't hear people talk about it a ton. And it's basically saying, give me those points. Okay. Maybe we're going to draft 10 wide receivers in this build, but let's pretend we only have 9. And one of those wide receivers is Godwin or Egbuka. Which one scores the most points? Use that in our starting lineup. Because we don't need all of these wide receivers every single week to go off. But let's be honest. If we say one of Godwin or Egbuka, one of you have a good game, yeah, there's going to be a lot more weeks where that's a possibility. And because we can draft a ton of wide receivers here, adds value to doing that. Like I would do fine doing the same with Pittman and Downs. Although that one, I would probably say, okay, if both of them are hitting, like something kind of happened in this offense that we maybe weren't expecting in terms of volume. So maybe you want to go after Anthony Richardson at that point. Or maybe you think Daniel Jones is the guy that's going to do it. I would probably go after them if you're going to do that. Odds are we won't. There's going to be so many picks between here. We're not going to end up getting both them. But that was how I do that. I do prefer Pittman, and I am going to take Pittman at this pick. I know Downs has the higher ADP. I know people really like Downs. I just still think Pittman's the better wide receiver. He had that back injury last season. He was playing through it, playing injured. I don't know. I think talent-wise, I'd be surprised if anyone was really going to argue that Downs is a better wide receiver than Pittman. Pittman also stronger red zone role. I don't know. I don't fully understand why Pittman's going, honestly, as late as he is, but then also behind Downs. I don't know. I don't understand why he's going there behind Downs. Okay. This is the squad so far. We'll pull this up. We're starting to get a lot more of these wide receivers. Metcalf, Hunter, Godwin, Egbuka, Pittman. I like that. We're still holding strong with our 3 running backs. Again, we have the 2 week 5 buys. It's not the end of the world. You can go into it with the 3, but we are giving up points in week 5. We probably do want to draft someone that is going to have an opportunity to score us points there. Also, it's kind of a game theory thinking. Let me know what your guys' thoughts is on this one. So I've liked the idea of 3 wide receiver or 3 running back 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago at this point. Could have been 3 years ago. I had a team that hit on 2 of the 3, and then 1 was like a mediocre hit. And it was my best team. It was my furthest advancing team because no one really does it. And it opens up so much opportunity. I think I may have drafted 11 wide receivers in that build. Just a very unique build. Didn't end up making it to the final. I was kind of thinking like, is there actually a ton of value in doing 3 versus 4? Because in the 3, now you need 2 or 3 of them to hit. And that just means that those guys are super highly owned in the playoffs. So even though, yes, if you can advance, those guys have great seasons. They're great in the playoffs for you. It's like other teams have that too. And I don't think having that like 11th wide receiver is like really enough leverage over them also having an extra running back. Also, sometimes you get the most leverage at running back when your guy isn't that good, right? Like doesn't have that great of a year, doesn't do that great in week 15, but then all of a sudden goes off in week 16 or 17. That's where there's value. And if you have 3, you may not even make it to the finals in order for that to be a possibility. So I think grabbing the 4th does make sense. Again, we'll grab it at some point. I just don't know exactly which one it's going to be and at what point it's going to be. Okay. 118. We're up in a second. We don't have any Detroit, or we don't have any Dallas, but good value there. I do like Evan Ingram at this spot. For wide receivers, no one stands out. So I don't know that we want to do that. There goes Ingram. I don't think we need to take a running back here. We'll just take Goff. Yeah, that makes sense. Goff to stack with Laporta. Goff, obviously a touchdown-dependent play. Not going to run the ball any, but Laporta is too. So if we get the touchdowns flowing through Laporta, it's going to correlate beautifully with Jared Goff. Again, I don't hate going Dak just for like the value. I feel like he's a good pick there. Yeah, I don't want any of these running backs. I don't really want to go there. We can get Ferguson our next pick, and maybe we do that. We have different bye weeks, right? Bye week 8, bye week 10. I'm going to go with Dak. I'm going to go with Dak and hope that Ferguson 140 is his ADP. We're going to be up at 141, so it's going to be close, but I think it's worth doing that. And then we have double, right? We have both the tight end quarterback stack, huge correlation in those spots. I think that makes sense. And if it doesn't hit, I mean, we can still get Trevor Lawrence later on. We could still try and get like Aaron Rodgers to pair with Metcalf. We think that's going to be happening. Okay. I like that spot just because this is also just a good spot for quarterback. We're seeing a very clear drop-off in the wide receivers, very huge drop-off in the running backs. The tight ends, again, I think are going to be similar to a range in the future. So it's just a good spot, and that's why you see a ton of people taking quarterback here. Just value-wise, it kind of makes sense. Okay, maybe I can get to a question here. Do you think it would be sharp to buy the dip on Jalen Hurts, if there even is one, if the tush push is banned? I would need to know what the dip is going to be, and there will be one. So he's a good value right now, and I think because people are factoring in that it might be banned, I've seen him very consistently go in the 4th round. Yeah, he goes right next to like Burrow. I could see him dropping into the 5th. I don't know how much further than that because he's still a mobile quarterback. He's still going to score sometimes, but let's be honest, they ban the tush push. That's what? 6 rushing touchdowns you take off, and that's like 30. So that's like 2 points per game you're taking off from projection. That hurts. It'll also skyrocket the value of Saquon, but let's be honest, it can only go up so much higher. He's the number 2 player off boards right now. I would say we'll do what we've done with other players, and we're just going to track ADP movement, and we're going to see where it's going to stabilize. And once it stabilizes, I think hopefully we can actually get Ferguson here because I haven't been looking. Once it stabilizes, we will probably attack that because I feel like it'll kind of bounce off the stabilization. But I'll talk about that more in a second. We have 3 seconds, or they have 3 seconds. I don't think they're going to go Ferguson. And they go Ferguson. Oh, my God. Okay. So, that's a problem. I don't hate Spears as that running back. But it might make more sense. I'm going to continue our Tampa Bay stack. And again, I know it doesn't seem super logical not having Baker in this stack, but I think we're still good at quarterback. We're just treating Tampa Bay wide receiver as a block. We know we're drafting a million wide receivers. I know Tampa Bay is going to be a great offense. I just want the production in that Tampa Bay offense. I didn't want to use that spot on Spears. I think we'll go with Tillman here too. Unless we wanted to go with Pitts, because we have Bijan. Actually, might want to go with Pitts here. Bye week, we're fine with that. I want to go with Pitts. And I wouldn't hate if we grabbed Penix as well. Okay, there goes Penix. I was going to say, I wouldn't hate grabbing that 3rd quarterback. What did I say Atlanta was? Atlanta. Okay, this works. So, I was thinking that in the back of my mind. Atlanta is at Tampa Bay in week 15. So, if our roster can advance, we're going to have Bijan and Pitts going up against Godwin, Igbuka, and McMillan. And if that game starts going back and forth, yes, we're going to want to have had Baker, but it's perfectly reasonable to expect one of Goff or Dak to approach the production of Baker Mayfield in that week. And if we get this huge back and forth, so much of our lineup is in that game. So, and it happened naturally again, and with other variables at play again, treating the 3 wide receivers for Tampa Bay as a unit. Pretty darn likely that every single week I can count on one of those 3 being one of my wide receivers. Now we've got what'll probably end up being 7 other wide receivers vying for 2 to 3 spots and locking in one good score. Any stacks are targeting early in draft season. I like the Bears. I think that they're, Ben Johnson being there, obviously everyone knows about that, but I don't think it's fully factored in. I think we're going to get some camp hype, and so I think the ADPs of those guys are going to go up. But it's pretty easy. I mean, there's so many opportunities, right? You've got DJ Moore, obviously, at the top, but you can go with Adunze, you can go with Burden, you can go with Loveland, you can grab Swift, probably want to pair, obviously, Caleb with one of them, but there's a bunch of opportunities early, middle, and late to kind of stack the Bears. So I do like that stack. Obviously, Detroit was the one that I stacked Detroit and Buffalo last year as part of the best lineup I had. So Detroit is always a team you can stack up. Cincinnati is always a team you can stack up. But I don't think value-wise for either one of those, that's like super amazing. I don't hate Houston. If you think the offensive line can kind of be fixed, if you think Stroud can kind of take that step back to where he was as a rookie, adding some wide receiver talent to the team, you're getting pretty good discounts on everyone that's not Nico Collins, so I don't hate that. I don't hate stacking up Cleveland, honestly. I've been doing more of taking like Judkins and Sampson just like as a duo. But if you want to take a shot on their receivers, that room is wide open. We do not know who's going to be most valuable between Judy, Tillman, Deontay, and their ADPs are low because of that. I've liked, it's like the 9th time this person has taken the player I was going to take. I like Tillman the most. We're not going to end up drafting Tillman here. Probably should have pulled someone up. I guess we can go with Braylon. I didn't even check the bye week. Good. Okay. We'll take Braylon. Basically, the thought process for Braylon would be maybe they split more, but really just handcuff upside. I don't need him. Like Bijan, JT, Jacobs. You don't need Braylon. But if later in the season something were to happen to Breece Hall and you get that fourth running back one, obviously there's a ton of value in that. For wide receiver, I don't hate taking a shot on Keenan Allen here. Hopkins would be fine. Yeah, I was just thinking through our other options. I think Keenan makes sense. I've taken him a couple times here. He's slipping a little bit, so maybe I could have just waited till the next spot to take him. But he's going to land somewhere, right? Like Keenan Allen's going to play for someone this season. I'd be pretty surprised if he just like straight up didn't play. He still was not great last season, but I don't know. I think there's a number of teams where you look at their wide receiver room and you're like, that's not amazing. That's maybe not up to par to what they want. I think he's going to go somewhere. And pretty much no matter where he goes, I feel like 15th round is quality for that. I think we have enough opportunities at wide receiver to kind of take a shot there. Team-wise, how many picks do we even have left? We have 3 picks left. We're probably going to stick with quarterback, Goff and Dak. We're going to stick with running back unless someone's really screaming at us. We could probably stick with Laporta and Pitts. So this will probably be a 2-4-10-2 build. We're probably just going to take wide receiver for the rest of these. Everyone I'm starting right now is someone I'm perfectly comfortable drafting. And to be honest with you, it's possible we can draft 3 from this group. It might not end up happening. If we don't get someone from there, I do see a drop-off into everyone else. Who would I be excited about? I mean, you could go with Tesla. I don't think Tesla's going to do anything this season, but he's super athletic. Maybe later in the season he's breaking out. We've got this little Detroit stack, so I would probably put him like here for us. I think that would be the general order we're looking at. But yeah, he's not going to start fast. I can just promise you this. If you draft him in like a redraft league, he'll be on free agency by like week 2. He's not going to do anything to start the season, but we don't really need him at this point in best ball to start the season super hot. It'd be towards the end of the season what we're wanting. So I'd love to get Pat with this pick and then maybe Tesla, but I have a feeling this person's going to take Pat because they've taken basically every pick that I've said is what we would take. I don't think we need to go with what by ADP. Do we have to go with Tesla? Probably not. Say Coker. We'll go Coker and then Tesla. I really don't think any of these guys are going to end up taking him. Because again, he's been falling a little bit. ADP 205. I don't think they would take him. But we'll see. And honestly, Lockett, I think Lockett's going to end up closer to like 180 or something by ADP. Look at the wide receiver room in Tennessee. They drafted 2 rookies, but they weren't really rookies that anyone views super highly. The door is wide open for Lockett to do what Lockett does. And he just goes in there, plays a full season, runs pretty good routes, just gains separation in a way that, yeah, I don't think it's actually worth. Someone will take Lockett, but I don't think it's worth taking the risk. I think the stack was a little bit more beneficial than taking Lockett there. But yeah, he's just going to be good. He's going to be solid. He's probably going to be one of their starting wide receivers. They're probably going to throw the ball a decent amount. Who knows? Maybe quarterback play takes a big step up. Obviously, they got Cam Ward. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot more upside than an ADP of 200. I mean, look at this. Like, look at the general range that we're looking at for wide receiver. I'd say that, and then I would say Dami Brown, I think, is going to probably have a stronger role than people expect. Maybe that's to the detriment of Travis Hunter, so maybe we're not in love with that. But I don't hate investing in wide receiver rooms when you have this many picks. If we were only drafting 7 receivers, I don't really want to take duos that I don't have the quarterback stack for. But at 10, we can start to just treat these guys as duos. De'Ami Brown, Travis Hunter, pretty good amount of weeks that we're going to get a score there. Pretty good amount of weeks. So we're going to have Godwin, Ibuka, or McMillan. So we kind of already have most weeks. We're going to have 2 of our wide receiver spots filled. And we still have Metcalf. We still have Pittman, Keenan, Coker, Tesla that can kind of mix in and out there. But yeah, I think he's going to have a strong role. He'll be a riser. He'll be someone that probably ends up in like the 190 range. If someone takes him, I don't know that we have anyone else we can stack. Definitely not in Detroit. Dallas, no, because I'm pretty sure Tolbert already got taken. Yeah, there's no one else I would want there. So no stacks. Upside wise, I have heard some things about Aaron Smith, but I don't know about that. Yeah, there's some running backs I don't feel terribly about. I mean, we could theoretically go with a tight end. You could go with Jawan. But I think there's more value on the wide receivers. I mean, do you grab Adonai and say, can he break out? And I'm doing another duo of Adonai with Pittman. That's not the end of the world. I don't hate Savion Williams. He's not going to have a strong role, but he's going to be like a gadget player, someone to give end arounds to, someone to give screen passes to. If there were to be a trade, he would also skyrocket by ADP. We've got Jacobs kind of in here, so we've got like a mini kind of correlation going on there. I don't hate that. I won't have time to look at this. Denver, Chicago, Baltimore. Yeah, we don't really have anything there for the stack. I don't hate Savion Williams. Let's go with that one. And it's another one where it's like, you know, maybe a lot of people kind of advanced with Golden. They advanced with Dobbs. They advanced with Reed. Savion Williams goes out there, has a long end-around touchdown, and gets a design play in the red zone, has 2 touchdowns. Jacob scores a touchdown. It's like we were running laps around some of those people on, again, a team that's going to be very good. I would probably more save Williams for Love teams. We didn't end up drafting Love in this one. But I don't hate it if it's going to be part of a stack. I probably wouldn't draft him as like a solo. Having Jacobs there kind of made it a little bit more viable for us. Okay, here's the squad. Again, we invested heavily in running back to start off. Bijan, JT, Jacobs, and then we waited a long time, grabbed Braylon. I don't love that pick, but again, it's just the thought of like, if Breece Hall were to get injured late in the season and not a lot of people have Braylon Allen on advancing teams, that's something we can kind of get away with, and we don't need that production right now. Wide receivers, Metcalf, Hunter, Godwin, Ibuka, Pittman, McMillan, Keenan, Coker, Tesla, and Savion. And then we got Laporta and Pitts, and then we've got Goff and Dak. I think my least favorite picks are probably Savion, Keelan, Braylon. I feel like those ones are probably my least favorite. Obviously, we got sniped a lot of times here by a name that I recognize. We wanted Tillman. We wanted Pat. We wanted Ferguson, right? Yeah, we got sniped on the Ferguson pick. We wanted Engram. So unfortunate on a number of those, but is what it is. Okay. Questions. Oh, there it is. I see the person who got the 4th spot. All right. Gone into the final week of Best Ball Mania thanks to you last year. Nice. Only had 4 teams in it. So decided to buy your package this season. Really getting the best. Wow. Advancing to the final with 4 teams is crazy. I only had 1 team and I had 150 in there. It's really, really hard to advance to the final of Best Ball Mania. So congratulations for doing that. That's really awesome. A ton of you got into this. That's interesting. Dynasty rookie draft, super flex, full PPR, 10 team. You got the 110. You're hoping Harvey falls to you. It probably won't happen, but you're hoping that happens. Should I draft between Golden, Dart, Caleb Johnson? You have a stronger need at running back than wide receiver. I don't love drafting based off need in Dynasty. I would pretty much always just take the best player available. I'll pull up what I have right now so I don't lead you too much astray. So I do have Dart, Golden, Caleb as like the how you would go there. They're not separated by that much though. I would say if it's extreme, like you're looking at this like, man, your running back 2 is awful. You have absolutely no depth. Oh, you have it. Okay. Aaron Jones, Kamara, Chuba, and then a bunch of handcuffs. Okay, that's not great for Dynasty. Wide receivers, Amon-Ra, T, Nico, Olave, Ayuk, Flowers, Godwin. So, I mean, you get pretty good wide receiver room. Lamar, Burrow, Darnold. Yeah, you don't really need quarterback. Yeah. Then I would be okay going with Caleb at that spot. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You might get Harvey. I would prefer like Judkins if you get him. But if you can't get, because that's Genty, Hampton, Travion, Harvey, Judkins. That's 5. So assuming those 5 are off the board, plus Tet, Hunter, and Ibuka off the board, that's 8. You'd think Ward's going to be gone. That's 9. So if you're in that spot and it's Dart, Golden, Caleb, I would be fine going with Caleb there. I just don't think you need Dart. Like, he's the best play from like a value perspective, but you do have Lamar, Burrow, and Darnold, so you don't necessarily need him. And quarterback is one where I would shift a little bit based on need, just because like there is no need in just like harvesting a bunch of them. And yeah, because Aaron Jones is going to be cooked. Aaron Jones and Kamara are going to be cooked in like a year or two. And then who knows with Chuba how long that'll last. And then you're just done. And at your next pick, which would be 210, you're not looking at like obviously very high end running back. So I'd be fine doing that. Yeah, I guess that'd be my answer. Go with Caleb. I just don't think it's Dart. Do you have any wide receivers you think will join Ayuk and Deontay Johnson in terms of how much you love them in the preseason? Pearsall, but that was kind of last year. In terms of rookies, actually, we probably do want to pull that up so we can actually see the whole draft board. All right. So I would assume the question is more in this general range of the draft. I feel like there's a chance Pat Bryant starts to be really trendy. They like him there. They've compared him to Michael Thomas. That's obviously going to spark some interest. I just like the rookies last year didn't like Troy Franklin did nothing. Vele's fine, but he's not that amazing. There's a lot of opportunity behind Sutton. Sutton's the one. There's a lot of opportunity there, and it's going to be a really good team. And so with Mims, I still think Mims is probably just kind of locked into that gadget player, deep threat kind of role. I don't know that he's ever going to command like a 20% target share. There's a world where Peyton kind of looks at the offense and is like, I wanted a Michael Thomas build, and Vele was almost the closest to that last year, but like talent-wise isn't kind of capable of doing that. And maybe he starts to become kind of like a target hog. So that's possible. But I would say Pearsall is like the clearest answer for that. I still think he's super talented. Obviously last season, I mean, you can't have a worse start to your career, right? Like he's hurt all of training camp. He gets robbed. He gets shot. Like he's lucky he's alive, right? So starts the season super, super slow because he was, recovering from a gunshot wound, like I think it was week 7. He started off up and down, but he ended the season strong. He clearly is a capable receiver, clearly good at getting open. They don't have Debo. Ayuk probably not going to start the season healthy. Like there's so much opportunity here on a great offense, good quarterback, good scheme. I don't know. I'm locked into Pearsall again. It was really unfortunate. I think I had him like 37% of teams for Underdog in 2 of 3 redraft leagues and in my dynasty league. So didn't love obviously the slow start there, but I think he's going to bounce back this year, and he'd be going a lot earlier had he started the season healthy last year. Why is CJ Stroud ranked so low? I mean, just last season, and the fact that like he just needs to do it all kind of through the air. There's a lot of good quarterbacks. I mean, you look at the general range, right? Stroud goes in this round 11 range. You're not going to put him over like Baker, Mahomes, Bo, Kyler. I think they've kind of earned that spot over him. I honestly think Goff has earned that spot over him. So you're basically looking at like Fields, but Fields has the mobility. You're looking at Purdy, but way better system for Purdy. Dak, but that defense is not going to be that great. They've added a nice receiver in Pickens, kind of help things go there. So a lot of upside for Dak this season. Jordan Love, excuse me. There's like 6 good wide receivers on that team. So a lot of opportunity there as well. You kind of start going through this thing. Drake May, a ton of mobility. Like, it's like, yeah, I think Stroud's going to be good. I think he's a good value, good to stack. But it's like there's a lot of really good quarterbacks in this general range. And it comes down to who you're stacking, basically, and what you think. Worst season for Kyler is 12th in points per game. I can't fact check that, but that's kind of the reason, right? Like, when you're thinking about Kyler, it's always the injuries, right? And it's another reason why, again, I'm saying that like Stroud's back there. There's so many good ones. Kyler's always the injuries kind of holding him back. Points per game wise, been awesome. But he's always hurt. And there's that weird report about the like not wanting to run as much. There's the weird chemistry with him and Marv last season where like they weren't on the same page. But yeah, if you could promise me 17 fully healthy games from Kyler, that their connection with Marv grows, like he's going to be a great pick. But you always are going to have to draft Kyler in this general spot because you are taking him as a quarterback 1. He's going to finish there. And you know that he's just been great at times. And then all of a sudden he suffers one injury in the second half of the season, not doing anything. Thoughts on Debo this year? Fine. I mean, McLaurin's the number 1, obviously there. I think they're going to be creative in using him. I think they want to do that in a similar way as San Fran did, but you know, it's a better spot being in San Fran. The constant injuries are a concern for him. I wouldn't say I draft him a ton, but on like definitely on like correlated teams in best ball, like, you know, he's a player that can take a screen pass to the house. He's a player that, you know, just bust off like 6 tackles in one player for a long touchdown. That's going to correlate beautifully with Daniels. So I like him in the stack, but in a redraft league, I don't think I'm like super pumped on him. I don't think his value is like high enough to where he's a really good value. I don't know. He's going in this general range right here. Yeah, Debo, 601. I mean, I think that's fair. Like, I don't think that's a sick value or anything. Might as well draft Tolbert. Yeah, but I think he was taken. I'm pretty sure, because in my mind, he was taken. I guess I didn't really confirm that, but I thought I remembered him being taken before we kind of could go in that range. Maybe I was thinking about a different player, though. I probably was. Because I could have taken Tolbert instead of Coker. I don't know who I was thinking of that. Maybe I saw Tutu and I thought that was Tolbert or something, but I thought that he was already taken. Yeah, I probably should have drafted Tolbert instead of Coker. Thoughts on Team 12? Break down Team 12. Running back start. I like to start with McCaffrey and Henry, 2 players capable of scoring 30 fantasy points. Stack with Lamar. Not that Henry and Lamar are like hyperly correlated, but fine to do if you think they're going to score like 40 in a certain week. Hammer out wide receivers, Worthy, Adunze, Debo, Caleb stacked with Adunze, nice, with Loveland, good. We've got Cade Otton, Terrence Ferguson, and Loveland. Yeah, that's fine. I know some people like Terrence Ferguson. I don't know that I love it. I still think they like his name. I'm blanking the name. Their starting tight end. Who's the starting tight end on the team? I can like visualize his face right now, but I can't think of the name. I don't think he's like going anywhere anytime soon. So, but I just can't think of his name. Why can't I think of his name? Did anyone even draft him? I don't know. Someone help me out there. But I don't think he's going anywhere. And it's Higbee. Thank you. Higbee. Fine. I don't think Terrence Ferguson is like a phenomenal pick or anything, but having him as your third tight end, that's totally fine. I like Tutu. Again, I think Tutu is probably being a little bit undervalued this season. I think 180 is ahead of his ADP, but I think that's kind of where he should be going. Good team. Good structure. I will say, how many running backs do you have? You have McCaffrey, Henry, Pacheco, and Hunt. I maybe would have liked Hunt to have been a little bit earlier, but that's nitpicking there. I also lost a bunch of picks to you in the 2 and 5. Yeah, that is what happens when like half of this draft is us. Thoughts on Adunze? If you recall, you're pretty high on him as a prospect. There's going to be a video tomorrow that talks about Adunze. So won't talk about him too much. But yes, I think Adunze can bounce back this season. You had team 4 and 3 got past the first round, 2 past second round. Oh, you had 4 teams, 3 past the first round, 2 in this. Wow, that's crazy. That's an amazing advancement rate. Don't expect to advance at that same rate through a lot more drafts, but that's awesome. What do you think the ideal build is for best ball? 2-5-3 or 2-5-8 3 it would be. I don't know if there's an ideal build. I think it's just like, how does the draft come to you, right? Obviously, for my build, having these 3 here, I was not going to draft a ton of running backs. I like teams right now that are able to hit on some wide receivers early on. So like this team here, team 5, CD, Rice, JMO. That's a lot of value in wide receiver in the first couple rounds. You get Bucky Irving there. I like that general style of build. I even don't mind like Jefferson, T, Garrett. You guys know I'm a little bit off of Garrett right now, but Garrett, Sutton. I like that because then like, I think this is sick value, right? Hampton, Dave Montgomery, Judkins. I think this can be a really good trio of running backs. So I like investing more at wide receiver early on. That means that you're probably looking at most 8, potentially 7, but you're probably going to want to be in that 7-8 range for wide receiver. And you're probably going to end up with 5, potentially 6 running backs. You're usually looking at 2 or 3 tight ends, depending on how early you go at tight end. If you're taking Bowers or McBride, you're definitely only going with 2. I risked it a little bit, only going with 2, having Laporta. But if you had waited till like round 9, 10, you're probably going with 3 total tight ends. I like teams that only go with 2 quarterbacks. I can see the benefit of going with 3, but I would probably only grab the 3rd quarterback. I did a study one time, and it was 2 rounds of value. So if that 3rd quarterback comes at 2 rounds of value, and especially if you didn't invest heavily in the first 2 quarterbacks, then it's a good spot. But I think if you can stay in the general 2-5-8-3 range and then just adjust a little bit based on how the first couple rounds go, if you go heavy running back, maybe drop to 4. If you heavy wide receiver, maybe keep at 5 or bump up to 6 running backs. Just adjusting from that as a baseline. Am I crazy for frequently going 3 late quarterbacks? Absolutely not. Again, I think this season, especially if you can grab your first quarterback in this range 100%. Your first quarterback can absolutely be any of Bo Nix, Baker Mayfield, Mahomes, Caleb, Kyler, Fields, Goff, Purdy, Dak, Love, Herbert, May, Stroud, Lawrence. I would say after that, you probably don't want your first quarterback being like McCarthy, Cam Ward, but your first quarterback can absolutely be one of them. Maybe you double dip on them, but maybe you go with like Dak, Penix, Stafford, or Geno. I had a team the other day where I drafted Genty, I drafted Bowers, I think I drafted, I don't remember how you say his Latin. It's not like Beck, I think is how you pronounce it, but someone correct me if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Didn't get Myers. But then I just grabbed Geno, and that's an amazing stack as well. So yes, you can go 3 late. If you wanted to do Penix, like Geno, Sam, I'm a little bit worried about Sam this season, but like Penix, Geno, AR, Dart, like just like taking shots, Bryce Young, stuff like that. I think that's totally fine. You would definitely want to stack though. So those late guys, like think about Allen, Lamar, Hurts, Daniels, they can score 30 fantasy points and no one on their team did that amazing. If you're stacking Bryce Young and it's working out, Penix and it's working out, Geno, it's working out, it's because they threw a ton of yards and touchdowns and those guys are benefiting, their pass catchers are benefiting. To not draft one of them would be weird. And to not draft like 2 of them would be weird. And you'd probably want to go more towards correlation in terms of like, week 15, 16, 17 as well, to where you might not need to do that because like, you could just have Jane Daniels run for 100 yards and a touchdown. All of a sudden, that's already 16 fantasy points. It doesn't need to throw for that much. Yeah, general thought there on the late ones. Definitely possible. Do you think it might be wise to steer more towards wide receivers early with the success of older running backs last year? It's not necessarily the success of older running backs last year because like those older running backs still had early ADP. It's not like Henry, Jacobs, Kamara was one that ended up happening, but like Henry and Jacobs were probably like the biggest two that kind of like really broke out. Saquon as well. I don't know about broke out for Saquon, but like had great seasons at like an older age. I would say it's more this season is unique because I love Harvey. I don't say love Caleb Johnson, but I think he's going to be a good pick. I love Amari Hampton. I think Judkins can be a really good pick. But even beyond the rookies, I think that Aaron Jones has good value. I think Dave Montgomery is just always a stable option. I think Ken Walker can have an amazing season. Travion, I like the upside of there. Mixon. And all these guys are going in rounds like 5, 6, 7. If you can kind of draft wide receivers the first 3, 4 rounds, rack up a ton of value there, there's a possibility you can get these guys. Even like Breece Hall sometimes goes into like the mid to late 4th round. It's like there's some really good value at running back in this general range. That's more the reason, not so that like, all these old running backs are hitting now because like, how many old running backs are actually in this range? This is not a range of old running backs, going later on that we're expecting to break out. And there definitely is a drop off in this like, I would say round 9 range, Tracy, Mason, Najee, Warren. Like I like this range a lot better, 5, 6, 7, 8 for running back. And so if you kind of assume you maybe are drafting some guys in that range, obviously we did the opposite in this one because I wanted to try something unique, going Bijan, JT, and Jacobs, and then hammering wide receiver in this range. But I think optimally, if I could only draft like one team, it was a possibility, I would want to try and focus heavily on wide receiver early because of all the value at running back in the middle rounds, at least as of right now. What are we projecting for McCarthy this year, given Sam Darnold's success? If you promised me McCarthy was going to play 17 fully healthy games, then I would take him in like round 11. Like I would take him in this like Dak, Love, Herbert, May, Stroud range. It's a system. The system is amazing. The system has a ton of talented players, great coaching. I think he's a good prospect. Like there is no reason to think that anyone, any human being, any NFL caliber quarterback that is starting for the Minnesota Vikings, any of the quarterbacks, if you actually know they're going to start, they're going to be good. I do not care who it is, as long as they are half competent, and I do believe McCarthy is half competent. Okay, I think we're going to end this one here. Again, when we start getting into July, August, we're going to be doing 2 drafts in these ones. I'm not going to be doing 2 drafts for the May 20th live stream, but thank you for showing up. The 43 of you who are still here, the true fans that are still here. Thank you all for watching. We're going to be doing, again, one of these every single week, 6 p.m. on Tuesdays. Tomorrow, I think it's year 2, 3 wide receivers that I really like. Friday will be ones I don't love. Still good, but don't love this season. And then we're going for some hot takes. I'm writing that one tomorrow. We'll see what hot takes we can get for this upcoming season. But again, thank you all for watching. I'll catch you guys on the stream next week.